Interim Executive Director at the Arab Association of Constitutional Law. He joins us now for some further analysis. Thanks so much for being with us. You know, we can all understand the protesters' frustration with the government, even before, Tuesday's tragedy. But still, is there a political alternative? I mean, the government dissolves, and then what?
Good evening, Andrea. I think the question is beyond whether there's a political alternative, which is a very good question and an important question. I think the main question now is, if not now, when? And the reason I say that, if not now, meaning after this huge explosion that had so much, that destroyed the city, that destroyed human lives, that destroyed people's livelihood, that destroyed people's dreams, that destroyed basically Beirut as we knew it, Lebanon as we knew it. So I think the key point that I think is important is that when we're talking about political alternatives and the political system, is that if this event does not lead to a real change, to a complete overhaul of the political system, really nothing else will.
Okay.
And the reason that I think that there should be a change is that this system is responsible for the corruption over the years, for the mismanagement over the years, leading up to this explosion that took place in Beirut. So this is really a historic moment where it's an opportunity for something better to come out. But
you would
of
hope.
Course, because
we all hope something better can come out. The problem is, if the alternative is creating a political vacuum of sorts, then bad can get worse.
I think the political system is designed in such a way, and this is its pride, this is what it excels at, is at promoting a message that there is no political alternative other than these same leaders who have been governing Lebanon since 1990, since after the Civil War. So they propagate this view that if they are no longer in power, then there's a political vacuum. And I refuse to believe it. I think anybody who knows Lebanon and the resources that are there in Lebanon would know that the political alternative would be there if there's a political will. The problem is this political system is not used to being held to account, is used to staying in power. It's quite a very unique system in that we are a parliamentary democracy, but it's a system that does not encourage accountability. It's actually built on the foundations of impunity from the end of the Civil War until now. And to give a brief example, Prime Minister Hassan Diab, who is set in 15, 20 minutes to most likely announce his resignation, even a few weeks ago and a few days ago, he was saying, or reports were saying, that he did not want to resign because he claimed there was no alternative. So he had just been in power for 6 or 7 months, and already he was claiming that there was no alternative to him. So that's what the system encourages. On the contrary, I think there are plenty of alternatives if there's a political will. And I refuse to believe that there isn't an alternative where we can really get somebody in government and many ministers who are able to come up with a good program to manage the garbage crisis. I mean, is that such a huge deal? But also, more important than that, is on the security level, this corruption that has led to an explosion that has caused so much suffering. So I think speaking now that there is no political alternative only serves the political system that caused that explosion.
Understood. Halim, though, I only have a minute left with you, and I want to talk about something other than the government. And let's talk about Beirut and Lebanon and what happens in the shorter term. Should we fear actually what might happen? Because right now we're seeing this outpouring of solidarity and citizens helping each other, and that is the beauty of the Lebanese people. But many fear, that could descend into something else, criminality and even rioting as people get desperate. Once the real initial shock wears off and people are trying to start rebuild their lives, there's just physical chaos on the ground right now in Beirut. Are you scared of what could happen in the short term? And the lack of police authority, for example, as well, or the mistrust of the police as well, trying to rein in this potential criminality that could arise from this situation?
I'm honestly not scared about the rioting and the images of the rioting or some of the protests that are coming out from Beirut. What scares me, and I think what scares the Lebanese people, was the explosion that took place in Beirut, and that still scares us to this moment. We're still living in shock and disbelief. So I think, and beyond these images of people coming together and helping out, which is actually a symbol of the absence of the government, I think it is a very dangerous moment in Lebanese history that could very easily spiral into more violence. But I think on the political level, there has been renewed attention from Arab and international powers with the meeting that took place yesterday, meaning that there seems to be a will not to let Lebanon go down into a spiral of violence, with certain commitments for money to be given for relief aid and partial reconstruction. However, the point here is that this money should not be used to re-legitimize the same political system and the same people who got us where we are now. So I think, to put it into context, the riots we are seeing now in Beirut, I believe, in my opinion, that they are the responsibility of the current political regime, because it's been almost a week since the explosion and we still haven't heard one apology, one official, high-level official saying, I take responsibility. And it took these violent protests or semi-violent protests, these are unarmed protesters, expressing their anger and frustration. So it took all that time just to get the prime minister, who's governing over a super weak government, to resign. So I think ultimately the messages from Lebanon is that this political system, there should be a change coming out from this event that took place, a system that brings forth more accountability and hopefully a bit more hope for the Lebanese people and for the country, or else it's really the end of the country as we know it.
Halim Shebaya, we're going to have to leave it there, really. Thank you so much for joining us, though, from Beirut. We appreciate it.